Hey everybody, I'm Anthony.
And I'm Rachel.
This week we cover Google's mobile first index updates.
Amazon announces its newest smart devices.
And we hopefully clear up some confusion with how to track Facebook conversions.
All this and more, live from One SEO.
It's taking control.
Hey guys, BJ Berge back with another exciting episode of Taking Control. Before I kick it off to my co-host at the desk, I want to start with technologically speaking. So the Pennsylvania Senate Democratic Caucus recently fell victim to ransomware attack. Now we've talked about ransomware before. People take your information, take personal information, things that you would hold dear to you, such as addresses, credit card numbers, everything in between. They hold it for ransom and they demand something. And in this case, they demanded Bitcoin. They demanded 28 Bitcoins, very specific amount. But at the time, it was relative to about $30,000 worth of ransom. They refused to pay that. They actually ended up paying $703,000 to Microsoft to have it fixed. It's an astronomical difference, right? But the moral of the story is they didn't give in. They didn't give in to the ransomware. They weren't going to be, exploited as such, and protected all that information and got back on their feet. At the end of the day, it did come with a price tag. And we keep saying every time we talk about ransomware and hacks and all this wonderful stuff that 2018 is bringing us anymore, you got to stay protected. You got to get out in front of it. You have to have backups. You have to have something in place in case disaster happens. So it's key to make sure all these things are in place before you move forward online, before you operate online, take credit card payments online. Are you taking the right steps? It's definitely something you need to research. With that being said, off to you guys.
All right, thank you so much, BJ. And Rachel and I are going to dive right into this week's first story, which has Google on the board. So, Rachel, as you know, you get a lot of these notifications about our clients. So, one of the things we wanted to address was that over the last few months, Google has been rolling out the mobile first enabled update. So, a lot of websites, a lot of clients who are getting switched over to the mobile first side of things are receiving just an email from Google. It's a standard kind of just update email. We wanted to touch on it because there's 95% of the time there's no action that needs to be required. But B, we also wanted to explain a little bit about what this update actually is. So, historically Google, and we've talked about this in the past, for indexing your website has looked at the desktop version of your site. So how your site looks on a computer screen. But because, Google knows and everybody knows that everybody's searching on their phone all the time.
Devices.
Absolutely. So now they're looking at how your website looks on mobile. The only time that this would really be an issue for anybody is if you have two versions of your website. So if you physically have a desktop version of your site and you physically have a mobile version of your site, it's important to know that if you have a lot of content on desktop but not on mobile, Google's not going to see any of that because they're just looking at the mobile version now. But most websites are what we call responsive, which means if you shrink the screen size, everything kind of stacks nicely, it looks great. Those websites have nothing to worry about because it's the same experience on desktop and mobile. So 90% of the people aren't going to see or recognize any sort of a change from this or experience any type of a lift or a decrease. But we wanted to bring it out because Google is rolling out the majority of the batches, it seems like, these last 2 weeks.
And no one should really be surprised. I think we've been talking about this even before the brand switch from Marketing Matters to Taking Control.
Right.
This is just something that Google feels is necessary. Like Anthony said, I use my mobile device to search things all the time. I ever rarely use desktop now,
right,
unless I'm working and I'm Googling something like really quick. So really nothing, as Anthony said, nothing you should do, just keep an eye out for it because they are flooding in. I've received a lot. I don't even want to give like a guesstimation number just because I've received so many, but
yeah.
Google is also doing its due diligence to say, hey, we warned you, we've been warning you for about 6 to 8 months now, so.
Yeah, if you're stuck with not a mobile friendly site at this point, Google has, in their mind, given plenty of warning for that.
Almost a sorry, not sorry. I think this is just the next change in the Google lifeline.
Yeah, no,
mobile first, always.
It really is. And everything's going towards mobile, and everything's going to smart devices and AI, which brings us to Amazon's big keynote event where they introduced
my favorite topic.
Yep, they introduced tons of new
AI.
products. This year at the event, they introduced everything from an auto device that goes in your car all the way down to a smart microwave that you can talk to. So
my favorite product out of all of these is, I don't think I know the name, Anthony, I don't know if you know, but the plug. So you can make any ordinary household item extraordinary by plugging your item into this plug, and then it makes it a smart device.
Right.
It's almost really smart for Amazon to roll out with this first, because if I want a smart coffee maker or a smart toaster, all I gotta do is plug my toaster into the outlet and be like, hey Siri, toast my waffles.
Right.
And then there you go. So it's really a good way to start maximizing the amount of smart items, and really the sky's the limit with this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like a smart plug, or it's just an adapter, or whatever it is. But yeah, no, that's super cool. I think the interesting one for me was the one that goes on the dashboard of your car. Amazon branching outside of the smart home and going more into the smart car. And of course, it's just more data points for them. They know where you're driving to. They know where you're shopping, where you're stopping. So it'll be interesting. The big takeaway here is Google is having an event in October where they typically unleash all of their new Pixel devices. Yep. So I think we're going to see, there's been a lot of rumors of seeing a Google Home Hub, which would be very, very similar to a lot of the Alexa devices out there. The biggest takeaway here, though, is just two big tech companies kind of racing to control your home, to control and who's going to have access to all of that data as far as the shows you're watching, as far as the products that you're using, what you're eating. That type of information is being transmitted back to these devices all the time. So it's a huge race to see kind of who can win you out. And right now it's.
I feel like, Anthony, we're gonna be like the Jetsons sooner or later.
We will be.
I'm gonna get a flying car and I'll just kind of pop up where I want to be.
There you go.
And you're gonna have to pick Amazon or Google.
Yeah, no, there's actually, we were talking about it before the show, and I won't get too far into it, but there's a great TED Talk out there where somebody hooked up as many smart devices as possible into their home and had somebody kind of see everything that was getting transmitted back. And I think the Amazon devices were pinging information back like every 3 or 4 minutes for 2 weeks straight. So it's, they know when you're sleeping, it's crazy, but they really do. So
I thought you were gonna be like, okay, Santa.
Song?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, Santa uses all of these home devices to figure out who's actually knowing, which is nice.
Yeah, it's not only the month of December. Santa's watching through Google, through Amazon. Now they have a holiday outlet.
Yep. And how, speaking of holidays and tracking everything, one of the things we really wanted to touch on was what we call the attribution model. So, everybody's pouring all this money into Facebook ads, into Instagram ads, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest even, whatever it might be. And I think there's a lot of miscommunication and just a lot of confusion in general that people think, that a person has to click on the ad, go to your website, purchase something, and then
that's how you convert.
And that's a conversion, and that's where I can say, okay, Facebook is working. But the reality is, people see, thousands of people, when you look at the reach, when you look at everything, see the ad or even click through the ad, but might not purchase that moment. They might come back 2 weeks later. They might bookmark the page. They might, so that's all what we call the attribution model. And I think that's important to kind of recognize because, Google Analytics is great, but it's not always perfect. So people often ask why Facebook conversions and Facebook tracking doesn't line up with Google Analytics. And a lot of it is because Facebook tracks these heavy view through conversions, excuse me.
And then he's getting really excited.
I'm getting into
Facebook
it, yeah.
Attribution.
So for example, Rachel, I have an advertisement for a t-shirt that I'm selling. Rachel clicks on my ad, she goes to my website, she looks at the t-shirt, she bookmarks it because she wants to ask a bunch of her friends if they want to buy it too because they get a cheaper price. She rounds up all her friends. 10 days later, Rachel comes to my website by typing in the name directly. She purchases those t-shirts. That actually wouldn't really be seen as a Facebook conversion in Google Analytics eyes. However, when you look at Facebook, Facebook knows that Rachel clicked on the ad 10 days ago. Facebook knows Rachel saw the ad 3 or 4 times throughout those 10 days. So Facebook can count that as a conversion because they have all that information. So, it's important to kind of identify. There's a ton of different attribution models. There's ones that can eliminate that. There's ones that can get even more in depth than that. And, I think it's important just to kind of understand at a base level where those conversions are actually coming from.
I also think just from, the social media marketer and myself, really take advantage of the analytics and the data that your social platforms provide you. So, analytics is great, all that is great, but like Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, they give you their own sort of analytics platform. When I used to collect data for one SEO and for the clients that we needed to, I would go directly to the source just because my data and Anthony's data that he pulled from analytics was different. So if you have an an ads manager account on Facebook, look at that. Look at your Twitter analytics. Go to all of those ad managers because that's going to show you even more information. And that model happens way more than you think. Anthony was giving me an example, and I was like, oh, that's literally what's happening to me right now.
Exactly.
So it happens a lot, and you don't even realize it. So when you're, gearing up for the holiday campaign, starting to put out your Black Friday ads and things like that, pay attention to not only your analytics data, but your ads manager data, your Twitter data, Instagram data, etc.
No, that's a great point to be made as well, because these companies, Facebook in particular, the amount of metrics and information that they provide you
It's really
absurd. And that's one of the biggest reasons is because they have all that information about us to begin with. They have so much information about their audience that they can relay that, whereas Google, analytics tracks just a visitor on their website. They really don't have that kind of information. So that's certainly a leg up, and it's certainly something that you should be referencing.
Absolutely. Take
all the
advantage
time.
of any opportunity you have. So just food for thought.
Absolutely. So Rachel and I are wrapping up episode 65. It has been a fun one. I think we covered a lot of interesting stuff this week. So
A lot of futuristic things. coming your way.
absolutely, yeah. Looking forward to what's to come in 2020 and beyond.
Blech.
All right. That has been episode 65. Everyone have a great weekend. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time.
Bye.